What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale coming at you with another 2025-2026 NBA season look ahead. We are on to the Cleveland Cavaliers, which means we get to speak with friend of the show, doing this, I think, for the 5th year. He's reached his half-decade mark with the look ahead. He is the co-host of the wildly popular, insanely entertaining Chase Down podcast, Mr. Justin Rowan, and I'm going to pronounce your Twitter handle correctly. I know it's not off to a good start this time. Follow him on all the social media machines, basically, at Cavsanada. Did it this time.
Oh, Cavsanada. You got to go Canada.
I can't.
You know,
Cavsanada. This is
my
fault,
favorite
honestly.
bit because it means that you have to have me back for year 6. And it's just going to keep this cycle going. You're going to have another swing at it. I hope you never get it right. I hope I get to keep coming on year after year.
What's the % chance that I get it right in year 6? I feel like we're still sub 50.
Your memory's kind of like mine. I feel like you're going to forget all the notes. You're not going to listen back next year. You're going to go in just going off of vibes. But yeah, you slap the Cavs in Canada. That's how you get there.
Cavsanada. Go follow him across social media machines. He is great. Him and Carter, anyone who listens to this podcast, I shout out that podcast all the time. One of my favorite listens. You guys do fantastic work. And now I'm excited. I was on your show the other day, so go check that out if you haven't already. And now I get to pick your brain. I was telling you before we got started, I was having trouble not asking you guys questions while I was guessing about the Cavs while we're doing something about the East. So now I get to ask those questions. I wanted to start here. What do you make of how last season ended, trying to separate it from, you look at that Pacer series, the injuries piling up, how some of their other postseason series have ended, but then also trying to measure through the lens of, okay, like this is year 3 of this core together. What do you take away from that and things that you either want to see differently or things that might have concerned you?
I don't want to be disrespectful to the Indiana Pacers. What they went on to do after beating the Cavs, I think, opened my eyes to just how good that team was. And not that I didn't recognize that playing against them, but that was a team that really understood its identity and found a way to play and be more than the sum of its parts. I think that's still something that the Cavs are trying to figure out, is how to be better, be more than the sum of their parts, particularly when it comes to the postseason. I feel like even with the injuries that the Cavs suffered for the most part in that series against the Pacers, I think there's still a world where they could have won, right? Like, okay. that Halliburton game winner sucked. Cavs win that game, obviously, if there isn't either of those two lane violations, both the Neesmith and the Halliburton one that were both in the 2-minute report. I thought the Neesmith one was a little egregious since he was already at the free throw line when Pascal Siakam had the ball in his hand still. But, little things like that, like the margins were really thin within that series. But I think the injuries basically leveled the playing field to the point where some of the Cavs' bad habits got exposed. And I think some of those habits didn't come back to bite them in the regular season because they were just able to out-talent a lot of the teams that they were dealing with. One of the main things, though, that I think you saw in the regular season and then really in that playoff series was when things got tight, when the game was in the clutch, when it was, the last 5 minutes of a close game, they'd go away from Evan Mobley. His usage drops from 23% on the season down to 12% in clutch situations. That's not going to cut it. You are asking too much of your smaller backcourt to initiate too much of the offense, and you become too predictable when that happens. So I think some of the bad habits got illuminated kind of with the injuries that they had and stuff like that. Like, obviously the injuries suck, and that's something that's probably a concern moving forward. But I do think some of the growing pains and things that they had to go through got exposed in that series. And even if they were healthy, I think OKC would have absolutely exposed that because they were able to do the same types of things defensively, just with much better defensive personnel.
I want to get back to the Mobley things. I actually have 11.9% usage in those moments in my notes. But What I really wanted to ask you is, so the Cavs go into this offseason. We know kind of the core is set at that point. No flexibility. I think the question was, how far into the second apron were they willing to go? And as of right now, they are $20 million into their second apron. And that's something you tip your cap to. But just looking at the lack of resources they had, the lack of flexibility, and then what they ultimately did, Okoro, Jerome out, Lonzo in, Sam Merrill's back. You have Larry Nance Jr., nice little reunion there. What have you kind of thought of, how did you feel about their offseason in general?
I'm mostly pleased with it. I thought that they were going to be able to retain Ty Jerome. There's kind of been national folks that have alluded to, hey, maybe that there was miscommunication there, or Ty kind of presented that he had a different kind of offer, and that caused the Cavs to go a different direction. I thought that there was the ability to bring back both he and Sam Merrill. But the interesting thing when you think about having both Sam Merrill and Ty Jerome on the team is Ty Jerome would be out there anytime one of Darius or Donovan was off the court, right? Like you're always going to have him there, so you have multiple ball handlers. Well, Sam Merrill deserved a lot of minutes. So if Sam Merrill's going to play and you're always going to have at least two of Garland, Mitchell, and Jerome out there, that means 6'4" Sam Merrill's playing small forward. And he played a ton of small forward. And when you're already, giving up some height in the backcourt, you're not going to change how it feels to play against you if you're not kind of changing up the personnel around them. And that was one of my takeaways at the end of the season was there might be a decision that they have to make between Ty Jerome and Sam Merrill. I probably would have leaned Ty to some extent, but at the same time, Ty Jerome was the weakest defender out of the bunch. Like, even though he's, 6'4", 6'5", he was the weakest defender of the group.
Right.
They used Darius Garland as their point of attack defender, like all the time, because he's the stronger defender out of, at least in the regular season, out of Mitchell, Jerome, and Merrill. So I think what they did was they've kind of done moves to make themselves feel different to play against them. And if you can't change up the core, you need to change up the guys out there around them. And when you have 6'7" Lonzo Ball out there, playing as kind of in that Ty Jerome role, now it doesn't matter that Sam Merrill's out there because he can functionally be the shooting guard while Lonzo Ball is able to defend some of those longer threes.
That's an interesting. I guess I didn't think about it that way. I viewed it as they decided to pivot to Lonzo almost than a Ty Jerome, and that they like the short termness of the contract more. I still think I might have, if it was a Merrill or Jerome discussion, I might have picked Merrill just because just the theory of this team, their depth is so important. But like Ty Jerome shouldn't be on the floor when it matters as much, and there's a chance that and maybe I'm just too pilled from Sam Merrill did play some three last year, and if you're healthy, you're ideally not going to see that happen. But I just don't if it was the choice between them. I think I value what Sam Merrill does more for this team. And he's also, you guys have mentioned this in the chase down. I think this has kind of become known among sickos is just that he'll fight on defense too. As you said, Jerome was the weaker defender. And for this team that, aside from Mobley and Allen, doesn't feel like it has Dean Wade has his moments, DeAndre Hunter has his moments, doesn't just have that stopper on the perimeter per se. I appreciate what Sam Merrill can do. But yeah, I guess I really hadn't thought of it in the Jerome versus Merrill terms.
Yeah, and Sam Merrill, when you look at the basketball index tracking data and stuff like that, he does a really good job of screen navigation. He's in the right positions. He'll get burned every now and then in isolation, but he does a good job. And I just think, when you have Lonzo Ball out there as a potential option, it just changes how it feels to play against you, right? And I think one of the things that kind of stuck with me is, all right, you're playing the Indiana Pacers. Darius is literally on 1 foot, trying to tough it out. He can't really move, so we have him moved off ball. Donovan Mitchell's playing through a calf strain, so his movement's a little limited. And your one healthy guard, Ty Jerome, can't bring the ball up over half court without getting an 8-second violation against pressure. We kind of needed him to step up in that moment. So it's kind of understandable that they might go a different direction. And, why I initially leaned Ty Jerome compared to, Sam Merrill was I want to have playmaking on the court. I think that's one of the main takeaways when I look at the last, 5-6 NBA champions is they have guys that can create at every single position. Even if they can't be primary initiators, they have a lot of secondary guys, right? You have guys that when the ball swings and the defense is off balance, they can make something happen. And, I think the Cavs are bringing in guys that can do that kind of stuff. Larry Nance Jr., high IQ player. Lonzo Ball, high IQ player. So if Sam Merrill's going to be that kind of gravity guy moving off of all these other high IQ players, I think there's something to that. And the flip side is it opens up an opportunity for someone like Jaylon Tyson, who has both played on and off ball and has shown some real chops as a playmaker, gives him an opportunity to, play a more prominent role and to kind of be that playmaker with some size that really gets in there and gets a lot of rebounds and can buy you some extra possessions. Cavs need that. if you can't change, it's going to be my mantra of the offseason. If you can't change the core, you have to change how it feels to play against them. And the only way you can do that is by changing the rest of the rotation.
My initial concern with that was even getting rid of Ty Jerome, and I mentioned this when we talked the other day, that it does feel like they might have guys who can catch and make quick decisions. If you need someone to initiate half-court offense, aside from Garland, aside from Mitchell, it felt like Jerome would be better. Then you get into, well, if you're banking on Mobley improvement, maybe that's not as big of a deal. Perhaps they're a little bit light there, but it does seem like you might believe that maybe you can get some of that out of a sophomore Jaylon Tyson this year.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I don't want to rely on it too much. Like, realistically speaking, we're talking about him probably as a 10th or 11th man, right? Like, it's going to depend on how Kenny Atkinson chooses to play, basically. Like, is Dean Wade going to be that guy, or is it going to be Jaylon Tyson? I do think you're going to have to kind of rely on a lot of secondary playmaking. Like, I like Lonzo as a playmaker. He's not a lead ball handler
No.
he used to be with the Lakers. Like, that's not really his role. But if you're kind of replacing that playmaking in the aggregate and implementing an offense that isn't heliocentric at all, where it's almost kind of like a Boston Celtics approach, where if we put enough secondary playmakers on the court and we have confidence in our offensive scheme, maybe we're going to be able to generate offense consistently enough. And I certainly have some playmaking questions, particularly early in the season. If Darius Garland is going to miss time, you look at them historically, they just haven't been able to have a top 10 offense without Garland on the court. Like last season, they went from
they should trade him, obviously.
Obviously, they had the best offense in NBA history with Garland on the court, and I think it was like 13th in the league with him off. And that's not just inflated by Donovan Mitchell being there. You look at the lineups of just Garland without Mitchell, got even better. I think it was like a 125 offensive rating.
I had him. I don't know if I finished with him, but I had Garland ahead of Donovan Mitchell when I did. I mean, all three of the Cavs made an All-NBA team, but I had him ahead of Donovan Mitchell, and that was just a huge part of the reason why, was because of the way he was driving offense for everybody else.
Garland drives the offense more than any player on the team. Mobley drives the defense more than any player on the team. But when we were kind of doing like our fake All-NBA teams, I still gave the nod to Donovan because he's the leading play finisher, and I really value the maturity. Like, it's one of the cool things about him that he was drafted to a 50-win team. He, like, out of the gate was a great scorer. He was a star. And despite all of that, he always kind of looks inward, right? Like, it's, okay, what can I do to get better? What do we need to do to get over the hump? And I respect the fact that last season he recognized, all right, if we're going to get over the hump, Garland needs to take that step forward. Mobley needs to take that step forward. So I'm going to take a little bit of a step back. I'm going to be off ball more. I'm going to be more efficient with my touches. I just really respect kind of that maturity and leadership from Mitchell. But you're right. Like, if you're looking at the regular season on-court, off-court impact type stuff, you're going to be led to Mobley. You're going to be led to Garland, right? I think that's why the Dunked On guys both had Mobley and Garland ahead of Mitchell on their All-NBA teams as well.
I knew they had Mobley. Yeah, I didn't know
you weren't alone there.
And Donovan Mitchell, we talked about this last year, does seem like with Cleveland, he's gotten better at toggling between like separate existences, like reading the room and figuring out what they need. I want to ask you about the Darius Garland injury, though. How big of a deal is that? Especially, it's not even just about, even if he was ready to start the season, we're talking about someone who is then limited in training camp, in preseason. How long does it take him to find his footing? Is there any, this team has been together, the crux of it enough, but like, you are trying to integrate some new players, including someone like DeAndre Hunter hasn't had a training camp with this team yet. So how important is this industry? How important is this industry, Justin? Can you explain this injury in the sense of maybe it's not even right off immediately, but now Darius Garland just has all these things that just add up. It's nothing really chronic. I guess the big toe, is that considered chronic at this point? But like, there's always, he's getting hit in the face. It's the eye, it's the toe. And so is it more about like, well, let's just see him like survive like through the playoffs would be nice.
Yeah. I'm definitely at the point where I'm like, I can't puff out my chest too much because injuries are always going to be a concern, right? Like I look, you're right with Darius. It's not like it's one recurring thing, right? Like, it's not like, okay, it's always a left calf issue or something like that. But it's kind of always something, right? Like, he was healthy 3 years ago against the Knicks. Up and down playoff series, I think it was better than people realize. I always like to do the kind of flirting versus harassment meme with Jalen Brunson, because they basically had the exact same averages and Garland was more efficient, but he had that one really bad game at Madison Square Garden. But yeah, if we go into this playoffs and Garland's not healthy again, I think when you're in the second apron reality, that forces you to ask some tough questions. I think the same thing can be said of Donovan Mitchell, because you look back at the last 7 years, basically, he's always kind of got something nagging happening with his lower body. 2 years ago, he wasn't able to finish the series against the Celtics because of a left calf strain. Against Indy, he had a left calf strain, and looking at that game 5, even if they would have won that series, I don't know if he would have been able to continue playing in the playoffs. It might have been a repeat of the year before. The one time that he was kind of fully healthy and didn't have anything going on with his lower body was the bubble, where there was a break before, and he averaged 50 points per game. So my big concern with Garland missing time isn't about, okay, is he going to be able to get on the right page when he gets back and things like that? That's not a concern for me. It's one, is he going to be healthy in the playoffs? And two, if he's missing significant time, how do we not kill Donovan Mitchell? How do we keep him healthy? Because even 2 years ago, when he missed the time with the fractured jaw, the Cavs had an incredibly light schedule. They played almost no winning teams. I think they played 10 games in a month because they had that Paris break, right? So they had some time off on both ends. The league kind of really took it easy on them. And by the end of that stretch, Donovan kind of had something act up with his knee, and they had to shut him down from the All-Star break till the end of the season. Just carrying that extra load with Garland out there, it obviously had a bit of a wear and tear effect on him. So my whole thinking is, all right, we're trying to manage Lonzo Ball's health so that he's healthy in the playoffs. We got to keep Mitchell healthy. We're going to need some guys to step up here at the start of the season, depending on how much time Darius is missing.
On the Lonzo Ball front, there's obviously the injury concerns and then keeping him on a minutes cap. What do you think he does most for this team, or how do you even see them, deploying him?
I think off-ball connective playmaker is going to be kind of his main role. I think he's going to be someone that helps them increase the tempo. I think that's going to be incredibly important in kind of those second unit minutes. I think, as I said before, being able to play some smaller lineups with him, being able to have Sam Merrill at shooting guard and Lonzo Ball kind of playing as small forward, I think that's going to be something that gives them some juice to those second unit lineups. The nice thing about the Cavs when they are fully healthy is you are able to have one of Garland and Mitchell out there, one of Mobley and Allen out there, and it really makes lineup construction easy. I think that's one of the reasons why they are so good in the regular season is when you have no real drop off when you're going to your second and third lineups, it's really, really hard for teams to keep up to that for 48 minutes. So I think Lonzo's someone that really helps when you're staggering Garland and Mitchell. Maybe even someone that you close with. I wouldn't be shocked to see them go Garland, Mitchell, Lonzo, DeAndre Hunter, and Evan Mobley at times. There's just a lot of different things you can do to help kind of take some pressure off of Garland and Mitchell.
Evan Mobley time.
Hell yeah.
Before we get into what we're kind of expecting from him, when you look at last year, which was just to me easily his best or most well-rounded offensive season, I don't even want to say what stood out. What was something maybe that kind of flew under the radar that he didn't receive enough credit for doing?
Man, maybe it's just that he was able to check so many boxes. Because our debate last offseason was, would you prefer for him to add a handle or an outside shot? And I was always team handle. I was the handle's just going to let him access so many different things. It's going to cause some gravity because defenders aren't going to they're not going to lay off him the same way, because if he's able to put the ball on the floor, you don't want someone that big coming at you with momentum. It's the Giannis principle, right? Nobody treats him like Draymond Green, because I'm not going to give that guy a head of steam. So I was always team handle, but the fact that he added the handle and the jump shot is just insane. He is a supercomputer. The processing speed with him, he's such an intelligent player on both ends of the court. If you guys want to watch his defensive highlight clips, focus on how often the Cavs retain possession. every single block shot is basically a turnover because he's either keeping it himself or he's batting it to a teammate. Like he's never throwing it into like the 10th row. They retain possession and start a fast break on almost every Evan Mobley block and steal. Like I know we use stocks as shorthand. They are literally stocks because they're blocks and steals at the same time. Like he is the rate with which he's improved, the way that he's kind of changed the fortunes of the team is staggering. Like they were a bad defensive team before they drafted him. As soon as they drafted him, it's just year after year, they're going to be a good defensive team. And last year, the other step forward that he took was, in the past, maybe you could kind of say, hey, these individual lineups where it's just him and not Jared Allen, like they don't hold up defensively the same way. They got better. Like they got better with him at the 5 on the defensive end. Like he was able to hold his own there. And, I think all around he was able to improve his game in a ton of ways.
Yeah, this trailed off too, I think maybe towards the end or middle of the season, but he really got better at finishing through contact. Had his best season there when you're looking at the P-ball index has that metric too, but you could even just feel it while watching him. But to that end, what is the next Evan Mobley frontier then? When this guy right now feels like he's already close to being everything in the kitchen sink.
I think some of it is on him and some of it's on the team. Like when I look at, going away from him in the clutch time, I think it was so easy to rely on Darius and Donovan in the regular season in those situations because they delivered. Like Darius, when you look at the clutch stats, nobody was more efficient. Like nobody was better in the clutch, I think, than Darius. He just, they didn't play as many clutch games as other teams, but still had the most clutch wins in the league. I want to see Evan involved in that, right? Like it's the thing we've consistently talked about is the only instances in NBA history where smaller backcourts win and NBA titles is when they have front court initiators, because the issue with the Cavs defensively in the small backcourt has never been defense. Like even if you want to look against the Indiana Pacers, where both guards were hobbled and Mobley's got a high ankle sprain, you're starting 6'5" Max Strus out there. That starting lineup had a 107 defensive rating against the Pacers. That wasn't the issue. Their defensive rating against the Pacers overall for the series was better than the Knicks against the Pacers. And the Knicks have like the prototypical 3-and-D wings, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. Like that's the best you can get when it comes to kind of role player 3-and-D guys. So, defense has never been the issue for them. Going back to the Celtics, when they played the Celtics without Jared Allen, oh God, they got Garland, Mitchell, Strus, Mobley, no Jared Allen. They're obviously going to get torched. No, they had an elite defensive rating and they actually outscored the Celtics in those minutes, right? Like that's never been the issue. The issue is when your two guards, smaller guards, are the only ones initiating offense, it becomes so easy to trap, to blitz, to make them uncomfortable, to allow the shot clock to be the enemy. You need to have those front court playmakers that can initiate offense and take pressure off of them, and in turn open up opportunities for the guard. Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry, when they win, you have Marc Gasol, you have Kawhi Leonard, you have guys in the front court you can run offense through, right? Like Steph Curry and Jordan Poole, same size. Steph Curry's actually smaller than Garland when you look at standing reach because Garland's got the bigger wingspan. If you look at like that backcourt, they have Draymond Green, you have Andre Iguodala, you have front court playmakers that can, alleviate and take pressure off of them. I think that's what they're hoping they have, not only in Evan Mobley, but bringing in a Larry Nance Jr. and a Lonzo Ball and these really, really smart players that can provide that secondary playmaking in the front court.
What do you think is going to be the best way to channel that, whether it's overall or even trying to look at getting him more involved in crunch time situations? Is it let's see more of Evan Mobley as the pick and roll ball handler? Is it let's give him more elbow touches, which did drop last year? Do you see a pathway to ensuring that they get, like you said, it's on him to some extent, but like what can the Cavs do to make that happen?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. Like I want to see more like inverted pick and rolls with him as the ball handler. They love to kind of run those horn sets and double drags, things like that. Like let's get a DeAndre Hunter and Donovan Mitchell in there, right? Like let's get them confused on who's going to pick, who's going to pop. Is Mobley just going to take it to the basket? I think that would be a lot of fun. I think those nail touches is definitely something I want to see more of, letting him kind of be that dribble handoff options. I really hope that the mid-range game kind of takes another step forward because I think that would make him so deadly because he is able to get to the rim and finish with strength from that position. But when you get that defender second guessing, it opens up opportunities for you as a driver. It opens up those backdoor cut opportunities. And I really am excited to have someone like Larry Nance, who's just like a technician when it comes to working in that area, as kind of that coach on the court and someone that can be talking to him on the bench. Like, I think that is really, really valuable from a mentorship standpoint, to bring that out of him. But I think the main thing I want to see that guy demand the ball. Like, he's got to be more assertive. Like, I think Donovan, Darius, and Kenny all deserve some blame for not getting him consistent touches and for going away from him in the playoffs. But he's got to demand the ball as well. Like, he's got to become a more vocal force and really, establish that position, demand those possessions. And I think that's an essential ingredient. I think he is capable of being like a first team all NBA type player. He's already made a second team, right?
Right.
Like, I think he's capable of being the best player on this team, and I don't think this team's going to win until he's the best player on this team.
We talked, I think years ago, we talked about, even with when the Mitchell trade first came through, this team will be actualized in its best form if once Mobley's their best player, and it's a couple years later. And now we're here, and it feels like I think you could have made the case he was their most important player. But the load that Mitchell carries, and he's always going to draw the toughest opposing defensive assignment. Like, there's just a ton of value to that, to have someone who can work like that. But you could have made the case it was happening last year. Now it feels like we're on the precipice of, if we're not doing this next year and saying, regardless of how their season ends, that he was almost clearly their best player. I'm almost at the point where I would be a little surprised.
Yeah. It's interesting because Donovan was saying that even when they got there. And I think, people have argued, hey, did you make the Donovan trade too soon? Like, did you make that all-in move too soon? The thing is, I think it's so important to see these guys fail. Like, I think that's what you learn from, right? Like, get these guys the high pressure opportunities, make them learn how to share the ball amongst, 3-4 all-star caliber players. Like, I know they call it the core four in Cleveland, and Jarrett's made an all-star team and all that, but I do think there's kind of levels to this. Like, two of them made all NBA teams, and Darius was like third that missed the cut from all NBA. Like, it's a bit of a different gap between Jarrett Allen, who's kind of a fringe all-star. I think Donovan's always kind of understood that Mobley is going to need to be the guy, but I still think that means Donovan's going to be the leading play finisher. Like, I think he's going to be the leading scorer. I think Garland's going to be the lead initiator, but it's just about maintaining that right balance. And, the unfortunate thing is when you look at the injuries that they've had in the playoffs these last 2 years, where Darius hasn't been himself and Mobley's kind of been banged up at times, it's changed the hierarchy of touches when you look from the regular season to the playoffs. Donovan will go down from, the third leading player on the Cavs in touches to the first. He's that leading play initiator. And something I really strongly feel is right now, Donovan Mitchell, the player that he is today, is good enough to be who the Cavs need him to be to win an NBA championship. He is not good enough to be who they need him to be to win a championship if Darius and Evan aren't, carrying their load.
That makes sense.
If Darius isn't himself physically and Donovan needs to be the lead initiator, he's not capable of doing that. He's a good playmaker for a shooting guard, but you listen to, basically what the Pacers' plan of attack was with Mitchell. We're not sending any help to him. He can score as much as he wants, but if we don't send a help defender, we're not going to give him reads that he's actually going to go out there and make. Like, he's going to get by his guy. He scored at will in the paint with Miles Turner. He got to the line a ton, but he wasn't making anyone else better in those spots. And, I think back to even game 2 where he was exhausted, right? Like, the calf strain happened. He wore himself out. They weren't able to inbound the ball late. Jarrett Allen, he had, I think it was like 24 and 12 or 14 or something like that on 6 of 7 shooting. You weren't getting Jarrett Allen more touches when he was that efficient, when he was that dominant on both ends of the floor. Like, that it's just, and it's not something I hold against Mitchell. It's just not what they'd ask of him if they were fully healthy, right? So it's, there's limitations when it comes to his game. But if Darius is who they need him to be, and Evans who they need him to be, Donovan is more than capable of being exactly who they need him to be. And I think that is the main story of this Cavs. And if things don't work out, it's going to be for that reason. It's going to be, they could never be healthy at the right time. Darius wasn't able to find that consistency. Mobley wasn't able to step up in that way. But I think they've gone through a lot of kind of those, those wins and lessons. And I think they have enough experience to hopefully, take that step forward next year.
I didn't actually have this question until I was listening to you and Carter do your mailbag last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. Is there, so it does seem, is there a question of who's going to be starting at the three for them, whether it's Max Strus or DeAndre Hunter? And if so, like, who is the one that you would prefer to see them go with?
I don't have a strong preference. I think there is a bit of a question. Like, I think that's going to be a camp battle. I want Max and DeAndre to both play like 28 minutes a game. I'm fine with either outcome. I do think the best version of this team is going to be DeAndre Hunter, like, playing alongside the core four, or maybe playing at power forward in some smaller ball lineups with Max Strus. But the tricky thing is, I do think that there's a real value, especially with Ty Jerome not here to provide that bench scoring, of DeAndre Hunter just being that bucket getter, right? Like he was averaging 20 points per game with Atlanta. He was scoring at that same rate per 36 with the Cavs. Like, that guy's a bona fide scorer. And, it's really funny for all the kind of focus on the Cavs core four. Like, I think people kind of forget, like, Jared Allen makes Caruso money. Like, he's the fifth highest paid player on the team next year. Like, DeAndre Hunter is number 4. And I think they're going to really need him to step up. So I do think, I don't really care who starts. I think there's a real value to having Max out there in the starting lineup. Those lineups have just absolutely crushed, particularly last year. They were terrific. And, with no Darius, I think he brings some secondary playmaking.
Right.
But we'll see. The one thing I'll say is, I don't want, obviously you're going to have one different starter with Darius out, but I don't want to change up things too much. Like, if the plan is for DeAndre to be the starting small forward, don't bring him off the bench just because you need that bench scoring punch. Like, start him. Even if it's Donovan, Max, Hunter, Mobley, and Allen. Like, I'd be fine with that. I want people to be like as close to their actual roles as possible to start the season, and just kind of move from there.
I think I would prefer to have DeAndre Hunter coming off the bench, because for my two main reasons would be, I think it then gets easier to get to those lineups that I know that he killed when you subbed him in with the core 4 last year. That lineup data is insane. But I like him better at the 4 than I do at the 3. And I feel like it's easier to get to those lineups. As a rebounder, we can have a conversation about that. That's clearly. And then you mentioned I like Strus's playmaking, but the other thing is that it felt like DeAndre Hunter, and maybe he did shift his play style and his shot diet a lot last year, but like, it just doesn't seem like a coincidence to me that he was in the 6th man of the year running and had the best season of his career. I think there's value in getting him to go up against those secondary lineups where the type of game that Max Strus plays, where he's more of a ball mover, and even just the shots he's going to take. Like, DeAndre Hunter's not going to hit the same level of shots, at least from the perimeter off movement. Like, he would prefer to dribble up into those, pull up 2-pointers. I just like Max Strus's fit then with the core 4 better. So those would be my two reasons. But this team is so deep, and I know it's matchup dependent. I honestly didn't think it was a question. And I was listening to that podcast. I was like, oh, Cavs fans are talking. I had Max Strus penciled in. I knew what the lineup data was, but I just had Strus penciled in there.
I think Cavs fans are some of the best in the league. They are passionate. They are insane. They listen to niche podcasts like the Chase Down, and they give us awesome feedback. They are a little obsessed with the measuring tape. They look at Max Strus and they go 6'5", that's too small. He should be like only a shooting guard, even though it's never been an issue. Like, they focus on.
Miami played him at the 4 all the time.
He was primarily a 4. He was a 4 on a team that went to the finals with a 6'9" center in Bam Adebayo. Like, it has not been an issue. When we traded for DeAndre Hunter, I really wanted Hunter to start. Like, I was passionate about it. I was like, I wanted to see minutes with him in the core. I like the Larry Nance signing because you might like him more at the 4. I want him playing more small forward, and I think having Nance and Dean Wade behind Mobley allows you to play Hunter at the 3, just so that you have size on the court, man. Like, I want to have more size around the guards and stuff like that. But like, I do think there's a real people obsess about the size. It hasn't been an issue on defense. Max is capable of defending, up. He's a really tough defender. I just don't think there's really a wrong option. And if you're trying to keep DeAndre Hunter healthy as well, right, and manage
Right.
his minutes in the regular season, maybe coming in off the bench gives you a better chance to be able to consistently close with him or have him as an option to close with. And, I think the most important thing is building out your best 48 minutes, not necessarily let's, walk out of the tunnel or have the announcer say, the most aesthetically pleasing five to start the game.
And the other thing with him too is the shots that he did cut down at points, but still wants to take. Like those will be more readily available in the secondary units than if he's playing alongside Mobley, Mitchell, and Garland. 70% of the time.
Yeah.
So their defense fascinates me because they simultaneously feel like underrated on the defensive end. You mentioned a lot of stuff that their smaller players are able to do, and then also just like, okay, like there's some maybe schematic issues here. And you and Carter talked a lot about surrendering soft switches. What is it that we should be watching for this season from the Cavs on the defensive end, whether it's something you want to see them implement, a concern you're tracking, whatever it might be?
Definitely want to see how much they kind of soft switch, because they didn't do that a ton under JB Bickerstaff, and I just felt like they were giving up teams like too good of options. like it just, particularly against Boston, right? Like every single time Boston comes down the court, as I said before, what the Cavs do is they use Darius as their primary point of attack defender. They do not hide him. Like if it's Trae Young, if it's LaMelo,
That was probably a breath of fresh air for DeAndre Hunter, by the way, going from Atlanta to Cleveland.
Oh, for sure, right? And Darius is kind of in that Steph category where like he's going to give up size, he's going to give up strength. You're going to be able to attack him on mismatches. Teams are going to get him involved. They want to wear him down. They want to make him tired, but he's going to be in position. He doesn't like allow guys to blow by him, and like he's going to compete on the defensive end, right? And that's kind of all you can really ask of a guy like that. But I've had these conversations before where, statistically, like Donovan's a worse defender, at least in the regular season. I do think he steps it up when he needs to, but he sort of saves himself a little bit. But like if Donovan's out there or Sam Merrill's out there and they're kind of hiding in the corner, you're not going to go through the trouble of bringing them into the action for, a marginally worse defender when, hey, you're going to give us, Darius Garland defending Jason Tatum without any fight. You are going to soft switch and Darius is going to defend Tatum. No player in the NBA defended more Jason Tatum shots than Darius Garland last year. I think Tatum went like 9 of 27 on those shots, but it has like a wear and tear effect, right? Like you're going to wear him down by doing that. And with the Cavs, they have so many good screen navigators that I just like to see them, put up a little bit more of a fight, change up the variety of their schemes. Maybe the plan was to do that in the playoffs and they stayed with the base look in the regular season, and then they just weren't healthy. So we didn't get to see that, or at least it wasn't necessary against Miami. But I'd like to see a little bit more of that, maybe a little more 3-2 zone. I really like the 3-2 zone with Mobley up at the top. They did that a lot in his rookie year. They did it in kind of spurts this year. I think he can do that with either Mobley or Hunter kind of leading that 3-2. But I just want to see a little less predictability from them defensively. I just don't think they made teams uncomfortable. I think they have the capability of being able to do that.
Do you think they have the personnel to do that while also retaining the unpredictability that they were able to inject into their offense last year, though? Because I think that was a huge... Everyone talked about, oh, look at the shooting, but it was just the Cavs, to me, were just so much more harder to predict on any given offensive possession. And I think that's what kind of made them, part of what made them really special last year.
I would say to do that, two things are necessary. One, it's going to take some dedication. And I think the way Kenny Atkinson deploys his rotation, I think you're able to do that because nobody has really long shifts. You're almost able to do what you did in Olympic basketball, right? Like when Kenny was coaching with Team France and stuff like that. All right, you're going to play 5-6 minutes here, but you're going to play hard in those minutes, right? Like you're going to play hard on both ends, but we're going to sub you out and you're going to get your breaks. I think that is needed. Like you need to get that level of buy-in from everybody. The other thing is I think some of them have to become better communicators. Like even looking back at the Indiana series, I think there were too many times where I just could tell Jared Allen wasn't talking. I think he and Mobley need to become more vocal. I remember, I think it was like maybe 3 years ago. We talked to Jared Allen at Media Day, and he was saying like, that's not really me. Like I kind of asked him about being vocal, being that quarterback of the defense. And he's like, that's not really my personality. That's not me. And then like 2 years later, we talked to him again immediately. He's like, I'm working on being more vocal. It's really important. It's a really big part of the position. So maybe that's one of those areas that they can take a step forward, because as the big man, that's your responsibility. You have to be calling everything out. And I think so often Jarrett's almost the canary in the coal mine. Like when the communication is breaking down, when the effort isn't there, he kind of shuts down. And when he shuts down, it's not elevating the rest of the team. And I would love for him to be that kind of like high energy guy that, is not like the indicator of the health of what's going on right now, but can, kind of buoy up everybody's effort level. But I just don't know if he's that guy. So I want to see more communication out of them. I think they're capable of doing it. I think the personnel is good enough. It's just going to take buy-in from everybody.
We already talked about Jaylon Tyson. Do you have any thoughts about Tyrese Proctor, the jitterbug who operates at warp speed?
This is where like me being a sicko is just such a problem, because I got a text from my brother like the day before the draft. He's like, I guarantee you the Cavs are going to draft the steal of the draft in your eyes. And I'm like, after the draft happened, I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, Tyrese really might have been the steal of the draft. Like, this is a guy, that was projected to go a whole lot higher. Probably not a lead guard, but someone that can initiate. He kind of blends. I was actually really curious after they drafted him. Like, I don't know what this means for Sam Merrill or Ty Jerome, because he kind of splits the difference. He can provide something with that ball handling. He is such a knockdown shooter. He is such an intelligent off-ball player. He's really long. He's 6'5" with a good defensive acumen. I can see him turning into a really nice player. Maybe he can be their Nembhard, right? Like I think that's what they're hoping for, probably not be as good of a defensive player as Nembhard, because few are, but a more reliable shooter that can bring you some secondary playmaking and isn't a liability on defense. Like I've got my hopes up for him long term, but when you have championship aspirations and already 11 guys that deserve minutes, it's going to be really tough for him.
I don't want to over-romanticize him, but I actually might be a little bit higher on him as someone who could pass after seeing him in Summer League. I know everyone's going to harp on 35 points against the Kings. Even when his shot's not going in, like his ability to get to it.
Every single one is pretty. It's right. Crazy.
And then 15 assists, against 6 turnovers in Summer League. Like, they should probably make a statue for that, I feel like. So,
you don't know who you're playing with. Like there is no time to get on the same page with everybody. Like he does take such good care of the basketball. And, normally like when the Cavs have a first round pick, I'll dive into a lot of draft content, right? Like we'll have draft analysts on like, okay, who are the likely guys in the Cavs range here and all that. We didn't do any of that because we're like, middle of the second, let's just find out who it is and then bring people on after. So I was like diving into all the podcasts and the analysis after, and every single one I listened to loved Tyrese Proctor. And that was from like before the draft, where it's like, if Boston's going to draft him, I could see him having a role on Boston. Like I could see him having a role on a playoff team. And I'm just sitting there like foaming at the mouth being like, okay, this is red meat for me. Like this is exactly what I wanted to hear, because, it's a skill set that translates, right? Like if you're talking about a position group that is able to jump into being rotation players sooner than most, it's usually a guard that isn't a liability on defense and doesn't have to fix their jumper. He seems like he fits that mold.
You mentioned the draft analyst stuff. I still do radio spots in addition to podcast spots. My least favorite time of year to do them is around draft time, because if you're going on a station like in a certain region, there's invariably the question like, well, who should Phoenix pick at number 52? It's like, and I've gotten to the habit where it was like, I'd say I don't know. Like I'm just comfortable enough. I'm old enough, so it's like I have not scouted the top 50s in the draft. Like I'm still trying to get through the lottery prospects, my people. Yeah. So that's my least favorite question. Are you ready to enter the cookie cutter portion of the podcast?
Hell yeah, buddy.
So what's an underrated strength or just an element to this team that you don't think is receiving enough attention?
I think maybe it is the defense, right? Like the fact that they are able to play these smaller lineups, and as a unit, they perform better than you would expect with their personnel, right? I think so often they have struggled like crazy on offense in the playoffs, and that has made it feel worse defensively, right? Like when you can't get a bucket, it's like, okay, well, at least get the stop. And, you allowed a score on 2 out of 6 possessions, but it felt backbreaking, right? And I think as a result of that, people have a misconception of what they are defensively. This is a really good defensive team. It's a really good defensive team in the regular season. It's a really good defensive team in the playoffs. They play well as a unit, even banged up. They're not as reliant on having the two bigs out there, at all times to cover for guys, because they do a good enough job themselves.
At full strength, who will be the top 10 most used players on this team? I think we just have the 6. It's the core 4, Max Strus, DeAndre Hunter, and then how do you see it fleshing out from there?
I think after that, I would probably guess Larry Nance Jr., because I think he'll probably play more games than Lonzo. Lonzo will.
The fact that it could be a discussion, though,
yeah,
a little unnerving.
a little unnerving, but he got a lot of. Did not play coaches' decisions in Atlanta. They were trying to, showcase some young guys for trades and stuff like that. He was awesome when he played, though.
Yeah, I wanted him to just land on a good team last year, but it was funny. The other thing that came up in the mailbag was Cavs fans seeming a little concerned about do we need to get another big man? This isn't basically the you turned Tristan Thompson into Larry Nance Jr. and that was your big man rotation for you've upgraded.
Yeah, it's definitely an improvement there. I wouldn't hate bringing in another big, but
Dominic Barlow's still out there. I'm just saying.
There you go. Yeah, so I think probably Larry. I might guess Dean Wade. Even he's got injury concerns now that I think about it. But I just feel like
who
he's
on
going
Cleveland's bench doesn't. If DeAndre Hunter's coming off the bench, who Sam Merrill? I guess is that.
Yeah, Sam. Oh, actually, you know what? I should have said Sam. I think Sam's going to play more than Larry or Lonzo. Sam's probably going to be that 7th guy. Then Larry, Lonzo, Dean. I think that's already 10, but I'm really, really interested to see if it's going to be Jaylon Tyson or Dean Wade, because I think what Jaylon Tyson can bring is very, very much what this team needs.
So I think you kind of answered the first part of the question of who could you see maybe rising in the rotation that wouldn't be in it to start as Tyson. Is there anyone that you could see being kind of squeezed because of this depth that Cleveland has?
Yeah, I guess it would have to be either Dean or Sam Merrill. I think if the Cavs start playing a lot larger and Jaylon Tyson is able to step up and, Lonzo's a little healthier than they expected, I could see it shifting where, there's less Sam and, there's a bit of a roster crunch there, or it's going to come with Dean Wade. Jaylon Tyson, yeah, he's 6'6", but he played a lot of power forward for the Cavs in his rookie year. It just, the way it kind of worked out, he is a menace on the glass. That guy has such a nose for the offensive and defensive glass. He makes such a big difference. He's kind of like Josh Hart in that way. And, if that jumper is legit, which there's been a lot of positive signs, he's got a
Josh Hart's jumper? I'm just
yeah. No, only when he's playing the Cavs in the playoffs is that jumper looking good. But no, Jaylon Tyson, coming out of college where he's basically his second year in college, he was a 3-and-D guy, and then his last year in college, he was heliocentric Luka Doncic, running the offense, to now being an off-ball player that they expect to give those hustle plays, make the right pass and all that. It's just such an interesting journey for him. But that jack of all trades kind of role that brings physicality is something that this team sorely needs.
I'd just like to point out in my notes to you, it said, please, for the sake of my mental health, don't pick Sam Merrill as the player getting squeezed. And you just showed no regard for human life right there.
It's okay. I don't think he'll get squeezed, but he's kind of in that mix there.
So this is, to a large extent, matchup dependent, but what do you think ends up being their go-to closing unit this year?
I think it depends. I think if they are winning, you're going to see 2 bigs out there, and either Max Strus or DeAndre Hunter with the guards. If they are trailing, I can see DeAndre Hunter at the 4 with the guards and Max Strus at the 3 and Evan Mobley. I'm really interested to see how that lineup looks. There was not a lot of minutes last year with DeAndre Hunter in the core 4, just an embarrassingly small number of possessions. I want to see more of that. I think that's something that they could go to, but that's kind of my guess. I think it's going to be more about what do they need more so than who they're playing against.
What is, one of my favorite questions to ask, a weirdo lineup that you want Kenny Atkinson to roll out this year?
I want to see Donovan out there with Lonzo, Sam, Larry, and Evan. I
Ooh.
just it it's just funky. It's weird. Everyone's kind of a playmaker with the exception of Sam Merrill. Like he'll make the right play, but he just kind of has that gravity. I just think that's such a high IQ lineup that could potentially be really good offensively without Darius. And that is something this team has sorely, sorely needed. So I'm just trying to throw as much IQ out there as possible with Donovan and see if it works.
I want to see like the weirdest 4 guard plus Evan Mobley unit we could build. Like, is it Lonzo,
No.
Merrill?
I can give you that. So that would be Craig Porter Jr., Tyrese Proctor, Jaylon Tyson, Max Strus at the 4, and Evan, and just see
So
if it works.
yeah, give me Mobley, Tyson, and Struce because then it's Struce and Tyson can be interchangeable at the 4, and then
Yeah.
Sam Merrill has to be there, and then give me Lonzo Ball as well. We're just gonna
You don't
remove
want
any sort.
Proctor out there?
I would like to see Proctor. Has he even signed his deal yet though? So I'm
Oh,
just
yeah,
trying
yeah,
to
yeah.
be.
They
Or
signed him
yeah,
up.
that's it.
That was part of it. So part of the post-draft analysis was Proctor's agents were basically telling teams not to draft them because they're like positioning to go to Cleveland because Cleveland was one of the only teams that was offering, or I think Cleveland was the only team that was offering like a full NBA contract 4 years for a second round pick. And he's like,
All
"Yeah,
right, so
get me there."
give me Proctor, Tyson, Mobley, Struce, and Merrill.
That's so funny. Yeah, I mean
That should just
that's
be a
funky and
garbage
weird.
time unit. Like, let's just do it. Like, there's Cleveland's gonna play plenty of garbage. Like, be on the right side of garbage time. I mean, so
Probably.
let's roll that one out there. Before we get to predictions, is there anything else we haven't talked about, touched upon that you think needs to be discussed?
I just mentioned him, but I can see Craig Porter Jr. having a role. He had a pretty prominent role in his rookie year as an undrafted player with Darius missed some time in the start of the season, Donovan missed time. Obviously, the backup guard rotation really did not work out for them because they had Ty Jerome. He broke his ankle a couple minutes into the season and missed the season. Ricky Rubio did not play, ended up retiring. So we thought we had all this depth at the position where we're like, oh yeah, we got Darius, Jerome, Rubio. Like this is perfect. Like this is going to work out. And all of them were unavailable by like game 3 of the season. So Craig Porter Jr. really stepped up in that time. I think this is a real make or break season for him. I could see him potentially playing some time with Darius out. I like what he does. He's a really active player. Could probably stand to be a little bit better on the defensive end. The 3-point shot is a bit of a question, but he is a hard worker. He's someone that will go down willingly and play with the charge just to get extra reps. He and Jaylon Tyson, I think it happened 3 times. They played a game in the G League and a game in the NBA in the same day. Like it was an afternoon game for the charge, and then they would go up and they would play in the actual game for the Cavs. Like it's nuts. Like these guys are bonkers. So I think there's an opportunity here for Craig Porter Jr. and might be a bit of a make or break season, right? Like if he loses out minutes and he loses opportunity to a Tyrese Proctor, they might choose to go a different position. Like it's a non-guaranteed contract that they might, factor into their decision making at the trade deadline.
He's already off to a terrible start though because he didn't make that weirdo lineup with Mobley and the 4 guards. So
It's
rough stuff.
a devastating blow for him.
Okay, predictions. How many games do you think this team is going to win, and where do you see them finishing in the Eastern Conference during the regular season?
I think they're still going to finish first in the East. I think the lack of depth in the Eastern Conference is really going to help them out. I don't know how much time Darius is going to miss. I'm kind of hoping this is like the Gary Trent Jr. incident where he misses like the first 8 games of the season and that's kind of it. Where Trent poked him in the eye in the season opener. Hopefully it's that. History doesn't always repeat, but it often rhymes. I'm kind of hoping that Darius missing time 10 years later is going to be like Kyrie missing the first start of the season in the year that the Cavs finally won the championship. Maybe that's what it is. To finally get our point guard healthy, they just have to miss the start of the season, and then this team's going to win a championship. So I think they're going to finish first in the East, and I have them. I think they're going to get about 61 wins.
Wow, that's actually substantially high. The over-under is 55.5 as we're recording this, so that's substantially high. I hadn't wondered. They're just so deep that it ultimately might not matter, but I'd wondered just as a team in their position, like, okay, how hard are they? Like, they create separation early on. Like, what do the rotations start to look like in late, like mid-March, early April?
Yeah, I think we saw some of that last year though. Like Donovan, low usage, career low minutes. Like they really took the regular season casually last year. Like I think that's something that slipped under the radar. Like everyone assumed, oh, they're playing every game like the finals.
Well, they were
No,
just
like
they were also just so good. It wasn't
that's the
like they.
thing.
Yeah, and like, will that I guess you have the Knicks and the Magic, but kind of after that, it's a lot of other teams need things to break right to really give
It's
that. So.
yeah, the lack of depth in the East, I think, is going to be a major factor. So they don't have any Paris or overseas trips or anything like that. Um, I don't think the full schedule's out yet. One thing that really kind of bit them in the ass last year was they had the MAC tournament and the NCAA tournament, and I think something else all happening in Cleveland, like back to back to back. So they functionally played, I think it was 22 games in a row where they never played in the same city twice. Like it was basically a 22
Oh
game
wow.
road trip. And I think it extended even further than that. It was like basically like February and March where they almost never played in the same city. Like even the games in Cleveland were basically like a road game where you're leaving that night. So that was kind of a little bit of their late season slide. I haven't seen anything like that yet, but I think that was one of those things that just really kind of tired this team out. And I think you saw it with some of the numbers with the Cards at that point.
Is there, and anyone who listened to the Chase Down episode that I did with you will have this will be spoiled, but is there a contender in the East that particularly worries you or fascinates you as a matchup for Cleveland?
I think Orlando probably is best equipped to give them a test. I think if the Desmond Bain thing works, and if Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner can be primary initiators, which I think is what Orlando's banking on rather than getting a traditional point guard, I think that I think they're capable of being the Cavs in a series. I think the Cavs would have to, play down a level, which we've seen them do quite a few times. I think the Magic would have to have a lot of things go right and stay healthy. They have a lot of questions, in the health department as well. But I just think, from a matchup standpoint, they can make it ugly against anyone. We saw them do that against Boston, even without their best defensive player. I think that they have a lot of room for internal growth. I think Paolo can be, an all NBA player for sure. And when you have that kind of a mix, I think you can be a dangerous team that can upset anybody.
If they end up being like second in the East during the regular season, I just won't be surprised. I would assume it's the Knicks, but it wouldn't shock me if it's the
Just
Magic.
stay on the other side of the bracket. Like that's all I want from
That's
you. Like
second or third is what you're rooting
yeah,
for.
second or third, or if the Cavs are second or third, be the one
Win
seed.
it, yeah,
Yeah, just
win it.
I don't want to see you before the Eastern Conference Finals. If we have to see you, then we will. We're going to have to find like a magic person to come on because I don't think that team's going anywhere anytime soon,
Well,
and we don't have our default magic guest yet for the podcast.
I think you put it perfectly the other day when you just said anytime you play the Magic, especially in a playoff series that's going to last 6 or 7 games, win or lose, you're just going to feel it leading into the
Yeah,
next round. You're going to have
it's
felt
going
it.
to have an effect on the next series. It's this like the opposite of kind of back in the day where the Cavs would always play like the Raptors on the way to play the Warriors, and like game one against the Warriors, you would always lose because it was just such a level up from embarrassing the Raptors, where you're throwing the ball off the backboard and you're basically like globetrottering it up, and it's like. Right. Basketball's hard sometimes. We have to focus. We have to kind of bunker down here and really give an effort here. This isn't Toronto anymore.
What a bookend by you. You started off the podcast basically saying that you ended it. That's why we bring on a pro like yourself, Justin. This was great. Are you able just to tell our listeners, subscribers, viewers where they can find you and all the fantastic work that you put out?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys know where to find podcasts. You found this one. Wherever you found this one, you can find the Chase Down. We are available on every single app. We also go live on the Cavs YouTube channel once a week in the off season, twice a week during the season. You can find me on Twitter at Cavs and Slap the Cavs in Canada. You'll find me there.
Cavs Anida. It's going to remember it last
There
year.
you go, buddy.
And the niche podcast that's also on the Cavs YouTube channel. That's a very oxymoronic thing to say. I think
It's still niche as hell, man.
You guys do. You're great.
It's
I
team
love it.
specific.
And they give you so much of a rope when it comes to the things that you guys talk about. So that's why I would even advocate for more. So you have people like Justin and Carter saying these really analytical and can be critical things on the Cavs YouTube channel. I think that's excellent. So
it's been unbelievable, man. Like I think we're going into year 5 of this partnership, and like we don't get notes on like the podcast and the content, right? Like they trust us to be respectful. They told us going in, hey, we're not trying to change the pod, like do what you guys do. And like I feel like an extra set of responsibility. Like obviously, you know, we're going live on the Cavs YouTube channel, like especially going live post game. Sorry, I know we were trying to wrap this up, but like,
no, you're good.
You know, I feel like it almost makes me a better fan. And there's like a little bit of a detachment because you can't be as emotional, but I'm like, I want to contextualize this. So like, let me say what I'm thinking, what my read on this situation is, and also, you know, give the devil's advocate side. Like, let's think about this whole picture. And I think it's made the podcast better rather than like stifled us. And I'm super appreciative that they've like given us that freedom. They've been terrific.
I still listen. So, and I have a thing with, I don't love player podcasts. I don't really love team sponsored podcasts. Yours is great, and it stayed great from its inception until now. So thank you for all the work that you do, and thank you for sharing it with us. And I think, as you know by now, I will be spamming your DMs in the future.
Hell yeah, buddy.